Hey, it's Amethyst Virgo. It has been a while since I did a video, but I've been working on this one for a little bit, and I think it'll help someone else out there. So if I keep looking up, it's because I have my computer and my notes over here. So first I want to talk about the solar return chart or reading and why it's so important. And so I'm very candid in my journey through astrology and where I started and what I think is the most important thing to understand at first. So if you are brand new to astrology, might not be worried about what a solar return is because you're trying to understand the natal chart. And I always say, understand the natal chart very, very well, and then everything else will make sense. So it's basically, when you look at the solar return chart, you cast a chart based on the same degree. The sun has to be at the same degree it was when you were born. So that means if you were born at Capricorn at the 27th degree, 15 minutes in, that is what it has to show up in your solar return chart. And there's all types of programs and websites that can help you plug that in. So you don't have to do the old school thing with the astrologers where they had to do it by hand, right? Imagine. So the solar return is a symbolism of the new year, right? The sun is returning to the spot that it was. And it does not mean the sun is going to stay in that same house, but it does mean it's going to stay at that same degree, okay? And that's very important. The sun sign does not change in the solar return chart, okay? It may change in a secondary progression chart. It may change in a transit chart. It's not going to change in the solar return because the focus is the sun returning to the degree. Now, what I also will say is that I like to use this along with the perfection year. So I have a whole video on the perfection year, and that every year that you're born is assigned to a different house. And so it's said that you go through experiences of the themes of that house. I do not tend to use perfection year charts. Those do exist. That is more of a really, really ancient timing technique. All of them are ancient, but I don't use the perfection chart. But the perfection chart is good to know which house is going to be illuminated based on how old you are. So you can also use that in conjunction with the solar return chart. So let's jump into it before I dive into each placement. So here's what I want to do with this. Your rising will change. So this video is more so breaking down how might your rising or the energy, if a new energy pops up in your solar return chart, if you're not a Gemini, but all of a sudden you're a Gemini moon or a Gemini midheaven, or all of a sudden you start to notice that you have more of that Mercurian energy. What could that mean for your year? So this is going to be more so look at the sign that is showing up in your chart, whether that's the ascendant. I'm going to probably focus mostly on the ascendant. If it's the ascendant, if your moon is now in Gemini and you're trying to figure out what that can mean, if your midheaven is in Gemini, right? What might that mean? I tend to see that the midheaven, the ascendant, and the moon are the significant drivers of the solar return chart. Again, that's just my experience after studying my own, after doing readings for other people. So let me give an example of why this works. Okay, when I looked back at every year, not every year, but every year there was something significant, I looked at the rising that I was to see what was I responding to, what kind of energy was I around that was causing me to have to direct life in a kind of different way. And so, for example, the year I went off to college, I was a Sagittarius rising, and I went off and I met different people and I explored different ways of interacting with folks who had different backgrounds and different expressions and different upbringings than me and different cultures. And so that is an example there. And it was at the, let's see what degree it was. I believe it was at the 15th degree, 15. The degree system. I've used the degree system that I use. The 15 is associated with Gemini, learning, but I had to go away to learn, right? So that's what I mean by how important it is. Even if you're not even, you can even look at past years. You just go, the easiest way to do it. Of course, I like astrology software for readings, but if you're just trying to look something up quick, AstroSeek is amazing. I like that site. So let's jump into it. Okay, so one, it's not an instant thing. It might take a while. Typically my solar returns, I don't really feel them until about a month in. And then all of a sudden, this year I'm a Gemini rising in my solar return. I'm still a Virgo rising, but I'm very much noticing the way in which it is adding a different way in which I have to deal with life in this year of speaking up more, of being more of the initiator in terms of conversation, being the initiator of certain ideas and thoughts, and how that looks different than Virgo, even though I'm still a Virgo, of course. So if you have Aries as your rising this year, if you have Aries as your moon, if you have Aries MC or IC or something shows up and you're not quite sure how to deal with Aries energy, if Aries is showing up in your solar return is important, you might be less reliant on other people this year. There's themes surrounding independence, right? You're learning how to go through situations on your own. Now, sometimes these may be situations enforced on you. There might be something that happens where your support system, right, isn't there, or you have to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet, or you're tired of waiting. And that Aries energy in your solar return, again, if it's in a predominant placement, if it is important to you, it could be somebody has Mars in Aries, and that's trining. I'm making this up, right? It would depend on where Mars was. But if Mars was in Aries for somebody one year, and then trining their Mars in Leo, that's igniting. That's creating a relationship between the solar and the natal chart. So that is important as well. But you're less reliant on other people. And you have to get up and get something started, get something initiated, really understand what you are capable of. So you are going to feel challenged if you have an Aries ascendant this year, or you have anything that's more Aries in nature, calling on you to really take control and direct your own life, right? And it can be very, you can have traits that you typically don't have. You're still going to be that Pisces rising. This is not changing who you are. It is literally saying, hey, this year is different. All of us have had years in our lives that have been quite different. Wow, that year was tough. I had to do it all on my own, right? Or that year was tough. I really, had to learn how to deal with different types of people. That year was great. That year was great because I learned so many great things that I never would have done had I not had to go to that in that situation, right? It's the person who drags their feet going to something. Maybe you have to go to your parents signed you up for some program over the summer and you didn't want to do it, but it was the best amazing thing of your life, and the rest of the year was great because of that. Get what I'm saying? So look at it as themes. You're not changing who you are. You're simply just looking at how things can be, how you might have a layer. I look at everything, any reading that is beyond the natal chart is a layer. It allows for us to express and experience different things, because your chart, if you were only your chart and never anything else, that could be an issue, right? Like if you never had transits or anything like that. Now, if you're a Taurus rising, you're Taurus now in your solar return, or your Taurus moon, or Taurus midheaven IC, or something stands out with Taurus, you're moving less fast than usual. You might need to slow down, right? You might notice this year is grounding you. You're learning how to look at something in a way to stay resourceful. You might even have scarcity. You might learn the value of life. You're learning the value of money. You might be learning, and again, the degree aspects to the natal chart will tell you more about what this can look like. Or you made a decision and you are sticking to it. You have to learn how to, especially if you are typically a person who is more impulsive, erratic, you don't like to stay put. Well, the Taurus energy in your solar return, if it's in a predominant placement, it's going to kind of force you to have to look at life in a new way, where you have to build up your resources, where you have to finally take care of something to add. It's going to add later. You have to learn patience if you have this. So you also can notice that, remember, Taurus can get rewards just like Capricorn can, right? A lot of times we look at Taurus as, okay, they're not moving with as much fervor as Capricorn, or Capricorn is steaming past. It is the train that just keeps going. But Taurus knows how to slow down and see what is valuable around it. It knows how to slow down. So you also could be finally noticed for something you've been working on for a long time. Now, Gemini, it means you're going on a journey of learning this year. So if you're a Gemini ascendant in this solar return chart, if you're a Gemini moon, and again, knowing what actual sign is going to change things, right? So of course, if I'm doing someone's chart and they're a Gemini moon, I'm not going to say the same exact thing I will say for a Gemini ascendant, right? It's not the same exact thing, but this video is thematic. So if that's a personal reading if you need me to dive into yourself, but you're barking on a curiosity. Let me give an example. I'm a Gemini rising this year. And the last time I had a Gemini rising was when I started the job that I'm at now several years ago, and I work in education. And so though this year I'm thinking to myself, what am I learning new, or what am I embarking on new that is igniting my ability to see things in a way to, entertain the thoughts that I have instead of Virgo rising. I'm still Virgo rising. I'm still cautious. I'm still going to be on time. I'm still going to do things diligently and all of that. But the Gemini rising provides the opportunity to layer on that Virgo rising, right? How to just try an idea, how to be more curious, how to not wait as much for the perfect moment, which we know Virgo can sometimes do. And also, last time I had a Gemini rising, the North Node was in my 3rd house. And again, I work in education. So it's just interesting when you look back at your solar return years, you can see when certain things may have happened for you that particular year. Okay. Also, like I said, I was recently out somewhere, and usually myself, I'm timing it. Oh, I'm tired of this. I need to go home. And last year I had, just different experiences with my solar return. But this year I was like more curious. I was more like into it. I was more mentally stimulated. And again, I tend to be a homebody. So I do see that the Gemini rising kind of has an impact on me. Now, again, there's other dimensions to my solar return. Of course, there's placements here and there. So that's not the only thing that's happening, but that's what I'm choosing to talk about right now. Okay. Now, if you have a Cancer ascendant, themes of home acting on your feelings may be predominant this year. There may be a reason why you have to act on your feelings. Maybe you focus too much on logic and you're learning how to listen to your inner self. You're learning how to use your intuition, learning how to use your feelings, right? So for an example, let me see here what I wrote. Both times that I had a Cancer ascendant for the year, I noticed that there was some type of significant relationship on the horizon. Okay. Now, again, you do have to understand your own chart because I have Venus in Cancer. So that could be a reason why as well from my personal chart. But when you having a Cancer ascendant or a Cancer moon or something is happening in your solar return, you're like, whoa, Cancer showed up. I'm not a Cancer, or I don't have Cancer ascendant, right? It's telling you that this year there's going to be some thematic emotional connection that you have to navigate and learn to work through. It requires the person to start to understand how to think in a way that is more aligned with how you feel, and how do you merge those two worlds, especially if your person is not used to really tapping into the emotions all that much. You're responding to something that's emotional in nature when you have a Cancer ascendant, especially if you have never had that. Great, that's not your natal chart, right? Now, Leo, if you have a Leo ascendant, a Leo something Leo-ish for the year, that is a major placement. Again, a major placement, I would say, is the sun is, if you're a sun in Leo, yours is sun in Leo. But I mean, if you're ascendant, midheaven, maybe the IC, or some people even maybe the DC, the descendant. But anyway, Leo, typically there will be themes of childhood, or themes dealing with joy, or themes dealing with finding your creativity, finding something that gives you a sense of connecting back to that inner child, that inner spirit, especially if your moon is in Leo for the year, finding the inner joy that you used to have, finding something that used to make you feel good that you forgot, and now you have to understand how to find that as an adult, to still have that childlike wonder, to still feel a sense of just appreciating the experiences that you have. Now let me give an example. Okay, so not that this is for everyone, but for me personally, I would look in and said, look, when I had Leo, and again, your natal chart might tell you why your solar return energy is a little bit different, but I'm going to be honest about my experience. So last time, the first time I had a Leo ascendant in my solar return, again, going back, was the year my dad passed away. Now it was at the 12th degree. We know at the 12th degree, that's endings. And we also know that that can be linked to a spiritual experience and transitioning. As though we don't like to talk about death, and a lot of times people will frame it in a different way where they're transitioning on. It's not that, so that was my experience that year. But also keep in mind, I have a Scorpio IC. I have Scorpio energy in my third house. So already I've talked a little bit about the themes of like death and things that I experienced early on in life and in general. So I'm not saying that everyone Leo is typically not associated with death or anything of that nature. But for my chart, there's already that predisposition for that. You get what I'm saying? So my moon was also at a critical degree that year. It was almost at Scorpio. Poignant moment. The next time I had a Leo ascendant as a child, I learned to stand up for myself after a tough year in school. I learned how to have confidence. So relate to you gaining confidence, or you having to deal with something and having to shine, regardless of whether it's a positive or a negative situation. How do you learn to still thrive under certain conditions? Now, again, you have to look at the rest of your chart to see how that could happen. But any predominant Leo energy in the chart is really finding your courage, finding your strength. And that's just something I would say there with that placement. What that means thematically. If you have a Virgo rising for the year, it's the year of perfecting something. If you have a Virgo moon, how do you learn to be more organized? How do you learn to appreciate organization? If you're coming from a sign where you're not really organized, or you don't understand the importance of things fitting together, you think things should just be. So you want to understand something very well. Virgo can be the great year to analyze something, to study something, to test something, to redo it, to fix it. Let's go back to the drawing board, right? Doing the work needed. That way you can hopefully enjoy what's going to happen the following year, right? Now, Virgo doesn't always get the glory, right? Virgo does not get the glory, doesn't get the accolades, it doesn't get the the presentation that we see other signs get. But Virgo does have a sense of self-achievement. Virgo likes to look at something and say, yes, I put that together. I put those puzzle pieces together. Yes, I figured it out. So if you have Virgo energy in your solar return is standing out to you, it is important to understand what you're trying to figure out this year. There's something, it could be something complicated, something complex, something that you have to undertake and really figure out and improve and work to fine tune. So that can be the experience there. Now, if you have Libra in the solar return, whether it's in a house that's really important to you, maybe you have a fifth house stellium and now Libra's there, right? Maybe you have Libra as the ascendant this year. Maybe you have Libra as the MC or the moon, whatever. It's about relating to people. It's about understanding how to relate to people. And sometimes we assume we know people. Oh, I know someone. I know them. But a lot of times, sometimes some of your relationships are not about relating. It's about you have something in common. But at the end of the day, you're not learning anything new because you've known that person for such a long time, but you don't venture out to try to relate to people that are different than you, or you think because you have a close relationship with someone that means you're relating, but sometimes other person can be completely different. They're just connected to you, but they don't really feel like you're relating. So this is a year to really understand how to compromise. Maybe you are a person that's more singular in mind. You're always not thinking of other people and you just know how to be independent. But that Libra energy might compel you this year or whatever year compels you to understand how to come together with another person. You might end up in a situation where you're like, oh, I don't want to have to collaborate with this person, or you might end up in a situation where all of a sudden a relative has to live with you that you don't get along with, or you have to somehow your relative that you don't get along with moves back home to your hometown or whatever, and you have to learn how to work together to take care of your sick parent or something like that. So Libra can have all different types of ways of bringing people together to come to a common understanding. And sometimes we realize that we have blockages on certain people. We've already assumed, I don't agree with you. I didn't agree with you 5 years ago. We don't have the same lifestyle. But sometimes you have to see that if there is a potential for change, or if sometimes our perception of other people is not 100% accurate, and theirs may not be accurate as well. All right. Now, the Scorpio. If you have Scorpio as your rising this year, or as your moon, as your MC, something that is standing out to you like, wait, Scorpio, right? It is important to understand that there's going to be transformation and change. Maybe you have to go through experience where you have to learn what matters at the root. You could have been focusing on frivolous things. You're focusing on minor feelings. You get upset easily, but then you actually understand, wait, there's more important things out there that I should be devoting my time to. It allows for a lot of inner introspection. It allows for you to attach yourself to something. Perhaps you're a person that feels like you're constantly into something new, you're intrigued easily. Now you're Moon in Scorpio. You're learning how to protect what you've chosen to protect. Maybe you're in a relationship and you're learning how to have better intimacy for the first time. Now, if it's a Moon in Scorpio, remember the moon is considered to be in fall in Scorpio. But either way, you're learning a lesson. You're learning how to connect to something in a way that's deeper and not just frivolous and not just something that's very transient in nature. So it is important when you have a Scorpio energy, for a lot of Scorpio energy for your perfection year, is understand that you're going to deal with some heavy, intense feelings that might change the way that you process emotions or even change the way that you view situations. It requires you to really understand that there is importance to attachment. And a lot of times when certain signs and certain charts and certain people never really form those close attachments, because it's maybe all about fun. It's about fun. It's about joy. It's about keeping things light. But when you have a Scorpio year, it is about learning how to evolve and change in ways to connect and learn the actual bridge between you and other people, better intimacy, better connections, stronger connections, being more aware of how you are choosing the people in your life, how you are choosing the situations even in your life, right? How you are intentional about what job you want to have, where you want to go, where you want to live, who you want to be in a relationship with. Do you want to be married? Do you not, right? Like all these things that you have to deal with that are a little more heavy in nature. But Scorpio, after a while, at its best, Scorpio has a really good way of understanding truly what it needs. And then just to get rid of Scorpio, you can learn how to get rid of the stuff you don't need. Okay. Now the Sagittarius here, I think I said something about that already. Let me see what I said up here. Yes, so the Sagittarius here. Your Sagittarius, okay, so you plug in your information, you realize you're a Sag ascendant, you realize you're a Sag moon, you realize Sag has shifted in your chart, and now it's in a house that's really important to you, conjunct something else, conjunct something in your natal chart. What's going on? Well, if you have Sag as a main contributor or somehow dominant in the solar return chart, you're now understanding how to deal with a variety of things in order to understand your own truth. Sometimes we think we know the truth, but remember, Sag is about going away from what is been told to you, and you have to find your own. This is a great year for people who are, like I said, when I was going away to college, I then had to learn from different people or see how different were people from me and how this can add to, oh, wow, there's people that think like me or there's people that think differently. I was exposed to all different types of cultures when I went to college. So where I grew up, there was really not a lot of diversity. It was white, black, and some Hispanics, and that was basically it. Okay. And so maybe you had a few other people that belonged to other ethnic groups, but it was not, there wasn't a lot. So the point is, once I went to college, it was really an eye-opening experience of also just like not just seeing other Black people, but Black people who were not Black Americans, or they were maybe first generation Nigerian Americans, Jamaican American, there was so many different ethnicities at this college that I went to. You had people from, you had people who were from different cultures in terms of, again, West Indian culture. We had people, I met one of my friends that was in college, she was Egyptian, right? You had Indians, you had, of course, you had white people, you had this white person's Italian, this white person's Polish. It was a very interesting mix of where I went to school. And it was cool. I'm a Sag moon, so it was just great to just spread my wings. So think about that holistically. It doesn't mean that you have to be going away to school, but a Sag year is going to be exposing you to something new. Now, the difference here is, depends on your chart. Are you going to stray too much? Right? You can have people that become so attached to what's new, you're always searching for something. It is important with Sag energy. Where do you define yourself? I can meet many people and hear their stories and hear their cultures, but at the end of the day, who am I? I know who I am. So it is important you have Sagittarius year, you're learning, you're gaining more knowledge, but at the end of the day, you should leave that year knowing, now having a new understanding of how all of this fits into who you are. Okay. Now, let's see, we got Capricorn. It's a Capricorn year. Okay, so if Capricorn, you plug in your information, Capricorn's important. Capricorn's the ascendant, the moon, the MC, the IC. Something stands out to you and it's Capricorn. It's a Capricorn stellium. I don't know. Well, when we think of the Capricorn year, it's about getting things done. It's finally achieving a goal or setting a goal or, allowing yourself to be fixated on what it is that you want. Again, Saturn ruling Capricorn. Capricorn energy is not an easy energy. It is very rewarding because sometimes our story of how we got to where we got to in life, it's not an easy road. How many of us like to take pride in telling a story of something that was difficult and now we've mastered it? That's the importance of Saturn. That is the importance of the Saturn return that I talk about. That, you guys know what that is. But that's the point. So a Capricorn year is about getting things done. You sometimes have to discard some of the emotional baggage, and you have to understand what it is that you're trying to get and you're trying to attain. It does require you to learn your lessons along the way. When you learn a lesson, fix it. That's the thing with Saturn. Saturn's like that disciplinarian parent. It's waiting to see, did you learn your lesson? Okay, then you can get your little game back, right? You can get your phone back. Did you learn your lesson? Did you learn your lesson? After you learn your lesson, I'm going to give you something back. So symbolically, that's what you want to understand with Capricorn. A Capricorn year or a Capricorn dominant solar return, something stands out, Saturn or Capricorn or whatever. It is about you learning your lesson, but it is about you taking things seriously. So if it's always a game, it's always a joke or something. You know how sometimes we have things in life that we've just been pushing off. We've just been pushing off and it's a big thing. And then we're like, oh, wow, I really have to do this. It could be a person who's been putting off a surgery, right? It could be a person who's been putting off applying to something. It could be a person who's been putting off, going and buying their house or whatever it is. And now that's a whole big process and they're learning how to be responsible. So a Capricorn year or a Capricorn dominant solar return chart in some way, it's going to force you to be responsible. But again, if you do it, you typically can win out in the end. Okay. Now, an Aquarius year. Okay. So again, what I mean by an Aquarius year, you're an Aquarius ascendant, moon, I see something Aquarius in nature stands out to you in your solar return chart, and you want to understand thematically what this can look like. Definitely has something to do with sudden changes, assuming a new role. Something shaking things up is Uranus as that ruler. Both times I had my children, I was an Aquarius ascendant, and they're a few years apart. So I just thought that was interesting. Now, for me, I have Jupiter in Aquarius, and we know Jupiter can represent children. So perhaps in my chart, that's why that showed up. But also with me, because I had the Aquarius rising both times, my descendant sign is Leo, the opposite sign. Also, when my brother was born, I had an Aquarius rising as well, all the way back then. And then I had Jupiter in my third house, siblings, Jupiter, children. So this is what I mean by do the research, go to AstroSeek, plug in some of your major years and see what was your ascendant that year. What was going on in the chart that year to help you see some of the themes for that specific year, okay? That could have occurred. So if you're an Aquarius rising, it does sometimes for some people mean among the group, you have a new role. You have something new you're stepping into that you've never done before. Now, Aquarius does tend to have that fixed nature. It typically is something that you can handle. It's typically something that you're able to do. But again, when you have an Aquarius ascendant, it is about wearing different hats or having to be something that you were not before. A layer of unpredictability or sudden changes that now ask you to utilize different aspects of yourself in order to make something better or improve something or move in a direction where your understanding is not just about you anymore. So again, when I had my kids, right? And when my brother was born, right? It's not just about you anymore. So Aquarius dominant energy, who are you serving, or who are you connected to, or who are you now in some way entwined in some type of now group membership or family relationship or something of that nature. Aquarius does tend to mean friendships for some people, but in my situation, it's always had some type of family dynamic to it. Again, your chart is going to tell you why something may be for you, but not for someone else. So lastly, I think I got through them all. I hope I didn't miss anybody. Pisces. Well, if you have a Pisces ascendant for the year, Pisces moon, I have a Pisces moon this year, and I'm learning how to slow down. I'm a moon in Sag. We can be quite impulsive. Like, I mean, even I think about it. I mean, Virgo has nervous energy, and I'm a Sag moon, and also even the way I walk, I'm a very fast walker. Like, I know where I'm getting. I got to get there. Like, and I don't like people that walk too slow. It's like, why don't you just know what you're going to? I'm going that aisle. Why do you not know where you're going, right? But I notice sometimes I don't have to rush. I amp myself up rushing, even walking to certain locations in terms of dropping my kids off and then walking to the car or something like that, or walking, like it just this rushing that I always feel. And the moon in Pisces, I feel like, has kind of slowed me down and like, stop, you're going to get there. It's okay. You're fine. Also learning more about divine timing, which I learned about last year during my last solar return of like, stop rushing. It's going to get done. With readings and videos and work and everything that I've been doing, it's like, stop. You know you're going to do it. You know you pride yourself in your work. What are you rushing for? So Pisces energy in the solar return is showing you how to slow down and enjoy what's in front of you, and how to simply listen to yourself. Listen to that inner voice. Stop thinking that everything's the external world. Of course, pay attention to your surroundings. I implore everyone to pay attention to their surroundings. Don't become oblivious. It is okay to slow down and listen to yourself in order to make some decisions. You can trust yourself, right? You can trust yourself, and it's not always about moving at such a high speed that you turn around and realize you're moving in a direction that doesn't even fit the alignment of what you actually want in the first place. And sometimes by waiting, we get a better prize, we get a better result, we get a better outcome by waiting. But we rushed to get something done and it wasn't done right, but we waited, and at last moment, someone actually helped us. Or we waited and it was the best time for us to go to that place. We waited and that was the best mood for us to do the work we need to do. So that is what you're dealing with when you have a Pisces solar return energy really permeating the chart in some way. Okay, now it might be more difficult for some of you more active rising people to have to be like, whoa. And I know I'm not even a fire sun or rising, but I'm a fire moon. And like, we want it right away and we want everything done. But I'm starting to learn as well, slow down. It's okay sometimes. Now, sometimes some stuff has to be done. You got to act fast. But sometimes you do have to notice when you are learning the process everything. You're less externally busy and you're more listening. And when you listen and you stop and you observe and you feel and you sense things, you're also empowering your own intuition, allowing yourself to feel things on a more intrinsically emotional level instead of responding to everything that comes out. So that is it for this video. I'm really hoping someone found this useful. Please hit the like button if you like the video. Feel free to drop questions. I cannot interpret your chart, especially a solar return, without a reading, because this is complex stuff. I just made it sound easy. But feel free to comment on your experiences. Again, you can go to astroseek.com and plug in your solar returns information and get to see like where some of the themes have been over the course of your life.